Kelders van Geheime spoilers for July 2026, a month of shattered trust and dark revelations. The calm that had settled over Soebatskloof was nothing more than a fragile illusion, and this July, the house of cards came crashing down in spectacular fashion. Secrets buried so deep they'd become part of the farm's very soil began to claw their way to the surface, threatening to destroy everything the Morai family had built. Trust became a currency no one could afford, and love became the weapon that wounded deepest. Broer Koos vanished like smoke in the wind, leaving Octavia holding nothing but a letter and a heart cracked open by betrayal. She discovered his departure through second-hand whispers, the ultimate humiliation for a woman who had finally dared to open her heart again. But the letter he left behind was cold comfort. Words on paper couldn't explain why he'd run, or why he'd chosen silence over goodbye. Yet even as she mourned, Matthew slipped her a blade of truth, whispering insights about Broer Koos that made her question whether she'd ever really known the man she'd loved. The wound was fresh, and Suné, Broer Koos's ex-fiancée, arrived, like salt rubbed into it, searching for the man who'd left her too. Joey, caught in the crossfire, had no choice but to lead her straight to Octavia, igniting a firestorm of fury and grief that would consume the weak. Meanwhile, Veronique emerged from her coma into a world that had moved on without her, a world Gershwin was determined to control. She woke disoriented, lost in time, and Gershwin seized her confusion like a lifeline. He crafted a new timeline, carefully editing the past to scrub away the ugliest truths, manipulating her fragile mind until she signed documents she couldn't possibly understand. When she told nurse Erin that her name was Dawn, a ghost from a life she barely remembered, Gershwin moved swiftly, silencing the nurse with threats, promising consequences if she spoke a word of what she'd heard. Veronique's frustration grew as memories refused to cooperate, and when she wandered the farm searching for her sons, Gershwin's promises turned darker. She would be locked away if she didn't obey. The discovery of a marriage certificate she had no recollection of signing, followed by a terrifying internet search that revealed Alistair's death and her own murky past, sent Veronique spiraling. She demanded answers about the man she'd once loved, and Gershwin realized he would have to accelerate his plans before she remembered everything. CJ's jealousy toward Matthew erupted like a volcano that had been simmering for weeks. The sight of Brenda working alongside the newcomer, laughing at his jokes, building menus together, it was more than CJ could bear. When he confronted her, the accusation hung in the air between them like poison. What exactly was going on between you two? Brenda's response was swift and devastating. She walked out, choosing to sleep at Gershwin's rather than endure another moment of CJ's possessiveness. The distance between them grew into a chasm, and when CJ arrived to apologize, Brenda made a decision that shattered what remained of their fragile peace. Matthew didn't show up for work, and when Brenda confronted him, the explosive argument revealed something neither of them had expected: passion, raw and undeniable, that went far beyond kitchen politics. They kissed, and the world tilted on its axis. Brenda was mortified, uncertain how to control emotions she never asked for, while Matthew, emboldened by the moment, began seeing her in an entirely new light. The friendship between Brenda and Matthew was steering toward disaster, and CJ's rage only grew. Soapie's return to Soebatskloof brought the promise of healing, but the wounds ran too deep. He surprised CJ, wanting to reconnect with his sons, but found a young man consumed by jealousy and bitterness. When Soapie and Marco saw each other for the first time since the fallout, they took tentative steps toward forgiveness, but CJ's brooding obsession with Matthew threatened to undo every fragile reconciliation. Octavia warned her nephew against the darkness growing in his heart, but her words fell on deaf ears. Down in the cellar, CJ and Matthew finally reached breaking point, a confrontation that could end in blood or redemption, but certainly not in peace. Veronique's awakening brought more than just confusion. It brought Brenda face to face with Gershwin's manipulation. As Veronique made herself at home in the cottage, Brenda's suspicions grew like weeds in a neglected garden. Gershwin's true intentions hovered like a shadow she couldn't shake, and when Veronique asked questions about the past, Gershwin's promises to lock her away if she kept wandering revealed just how far he was willing to go. Brenda had no choice but to go along with his plan, but every moment under his roof felt like a countdown to catastrophe. Meanwhile, Debbie Lee and Soapie returned, hoping to find peace, only to confront the harsh reality of the damage that stood between them and any hope of healing. A stranger appeared at Soebatskloof, demanding answers that only Jan could provide. Hermine, caught completely off guard, watched her husband's composure crack as the stranger insisted on the truth. Jan's revelations came like hammer blows, secrets about his past, about leader, about a life Hermine knew nothing about. His loyalty was tested by a ghost from before their marriage, and despite knowing that his choices would devastate Hermine, Jan refused to change his mind. Leader eventually revealed why she had come to Soebatskloof, her presence like a bomb ticking beneath Jan and Hermine's already fragile marriage. She asked Jan to complete a bucket list they'd compiled years ago, a request that forced Hermine to see her husband in a light so unflattering she questioned everything she'd believed about their life together. Soapie made the brave decision to reunite his fractured family, calling for a meeting that could either mend the bonds or sever them forever. Marco cleared his heart and conscience, speaking truths that had festered in silence too long. The Murai family gathered for a massive braai on Soebatskloof, hoping the smoke and fire would lift everyone's spirits. Soapie shared a secret with CJ and Marco, a revelation that could change the course of the family's future. But even as the fires of the braai flickered with false warmth, Brenda and Matthew struggled with the unbearable awkwardness of their kiss, and Philip and Nenna both felt the weight of impending doom. A dark cloud hung over Soebatskloof, thick and suffocating, promising that the worst was yet to come. As the month drew to a close, the sky over Soebatskloof grew darker than anyone could have imagined. Veronique disappeared, destination unsure, motives unclear, and Gershwin followed like a predator on the hunt. Hermine faced an impossible choice, her heart torn between the man she'd married and the truth that was finally being revealed. CJ and Matthew's feud reached its breaking point, and the cellar, the very heart of the farm, became the arena for a confrontation that could destroy everything the Murai family had built. The drums of war beat loud and relentless, and somewhere in the chaos, a prayer was whispered, "May Soebatskloof survive the month of July, because if it didn't, there would be nothing left to save." The storm is coming, the secrets are surfacing, and when the dust settles, no one will escape unscathed. Comment below, who will survive this month of reckoning? Subscribe and hit the bell to find out what happens next.